Detective Comics number 1074, written by the Ram V's, Dustin Nguyen on pencils, John Cleese colors, Ariana Mayer on letters. As I said, it is Gotham Nocturne Act 2, Out of Hell Part 1. Oh boy, let's get into this. We end up starting out and there's a building on fire. I thought, man, that looks pretty run down to be the Oregon place, because it's not. It's actually another apartment, and this kind of plays out weird because they end up where the police, Detective Fielding, which we'll get to in a minute, his partner, Detective Nash, they go and they are bringing a guy. They're arresting him for the fire, this building blowing up, and he demands that it wasn't him. He said, it was not me. Listen to my story. Please let me tell you what's happened. He said, me and my lady friend, we were there, cooking things in the apartment. Cooking things. They are in a meth lab. I mean, that's just straight up, however you want to take it. But he was cooking in the crock pot, cricket. And then you end up where they hear some noise. They go up to the roof, and that's where they end up seeing Batman. And it's funny because this guy's from Gotham, but he's like the Gotham poet. Because if it's me and I'm getting arrested and they go, well, what did you see on the roof? I'd say it was Batman. You don't have to say the big flying rat, the thing that goes bump in the night, Mr. Cape Crew. You don't have to get that fancy. The guy sounds like he's there introducing things like Michael Buffer at some fight. You're being arrested, dude. You end up, your hands are cuffed behind you. Just say it was Batman. And it was. But you see that Batman's infected by the asthma. He looks at them. He has glowing green eyes. They end up getting upset, and he has the shakes. And he's like, and they know the shakes. I mean, they're down there cooking up the meth, for crying out loud. And then you have Batman stumbling and says, Morton's. That's how we push on forward. But when he does that, he then attacks everybody. So this is a Batman out of his mind, which we know he would be. And when he knocks this guy down, he sees there are a ton of grenades on the ground. Now, you're assuming that he put the grenades there. We didn't really see that, but Batman's not trying to save anybody here. He's beating the crap out of everybody there. And then these grenades blow up, which unfortunately doesn't work well with the meth lab that was going on. Everything goes up in flames. And I don't know, after the scene, Batman, whether or not he's being controlled, mind whammied by the asthma, people die here. And I'm surprised people didn't say much more about that going forward and through this week. I think Screen Rant might have a story about it in like 3 weeks. Always timely they are. But a bunch of people die. He said that his lady friend, she didn't make it. He went running downstairs, and that's when he ran into the detectives. It looks like that's where he ran into Detective Nash. Now, with all of that, you do see that Batman jumped off the building. That's what he said. The last thing I saw was Batman jumping off the building and running off. Well, you end up having Detective Fielding and Detective Nash throw this guy into their squad car. They're going to bring him downtown. They call Montoya, and Montoya is there with what is the crazy bulletin board where she's got the string and the pins. I think that maybe one of the reasons why the Gotham PD is so behind on things is because they're still doing things with string and pins. You would hope that they have some sort of updated tech, that they don't have to do this. But there she is, classic. And they are actually tracking where Batman seems to be popping up. And he's popping up in crazy ways, blowing up buildings, setting fires. He's doing some bad stuff. So all in all, you wonder, okay, what is happening here? What's happening with Batman being, is he controlled by the asthma? All this? Well, yes, he is. But in this issue, it's a pretty cool play as this Detective Fielding. He's trying to figure out, he is a guy who knows more about Batman, even kind of hinting by the end that he might be making the connection or already knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. This is a guy who was saved by Batman from a scarecrow attack way back in 2018 in Batman's Secret Files #1, in a story that was written by Ram V with Jorge Fornes art. It's a pretty good story about Batman saving this detective, and unfortunately he's being fear toxin. He sees Batman as just an awful creature like you always do when he's in the fear toxin. So he ends up saying that Batman saved my life. He had to go through a lot of therapy. And I like that the idea where this is something that continues on, but it also shows you that aftermath of some of the awful things. And because of that, just this little bit of this issue, I don't know if this is how we're going to continue fully going forward, but with Fielding and Nash and the way that they're trying to track down Batman who's lost his mind, it really does play out. And with Montoya there especially too, it plays out like a Gotham Central type deal where you are getting that grounded detective story, but not through Batman. And I think that that's a cool play. It's Detective Comics, but you're going old school when you used to have like 10 different stories in there. And this one is more about Fielding as this kind of little aside. And I like it because he says, why are we just chasing Batman? Why are we trying to bring the Batman in? Why don't we try to figure out not where or why he's doing it, where he might end up, try to make a connection, try to figure it out through, the mind of Batman, which then segues into the mind of Batman. And here is the play of this and why I like it. What we get is we're going to get little of the mind flashbacks, things that Bruce Wayne thinks about when he thinks about Gotham. When he thinks, what is Gotham to him? Why is Gotham so important? What are the great memories? Things that would ground you, things that connect you to the city. And this first one is that his dad, Thomas, obviously took him over to the docks and they ended up getting an ice cream. Thomas ends up getting these like lemon heads, these sour deals, nonsense, like hard candies. And while he gives this ice cream cone, though he says it's a banana sundae, I call bullshit on that. I think that Thomas is insane. This is why you know that there's craziness of the brain going on. I think that the asthma, when it affects you, it makes you think that a big giant ice cream cone is a banana sundae with chocolate syrup. This more looks like a vanilla ice cream with a little crap bunch of like chocolate on the butt. It looks like nonsense. It's what it looks like, but it's not what he's saying it is. I think there might have been a weird play between the art and the story, but you do end up having Thomas with this bag. And it weirds me out too that you have just a paper bag with just hard candies thrown in. I don't know why. That's old school. It is, but I don't like it. I wouldn't go and buy from a store, and the store is Morton's. That's why when Batman was on the roof, he was Morton's. So in this play, you're wondering, what is he doing besides eating an ice cream cone that isn't a sundae and the nonsense hard candies? But what you have is that at first, it appears to me that Batman is thinking back at these memories and trying desperately to keep his sanity. But if you read it more and look into the layers, what is happening in my mind is that the asthma is looking for the things that make Gotham City important to Batman, make Gotham City the thing that he needs to have and where are his connections to the city, and it's now going to destroy them. Because we see in this, and there's a nice conversation about, hey, Brucey boy, your grandfather used to bring me here to let me know, like, hey, you always have to remember what's important. When you despair, you think of the things that connect you to the city. The city is always important, and you can end up doing this and never get too obsessed with, your obsessions and your vengeance, things like that. Always remember the city as you see that the asthma in the of the mind big giant wolf is trying to eat these memories, trying to eat the connection that Batman has to Gotham. So it's this neat thing. I think that this is a very clever thing by Ram V to first off show us what connects Bruce Wayne Batman to the city in the same time that you see it's being eaten and destroyed by the asthma in a very visual way. So you have this and you end up where eventually Thomas Wayne says, okay, now, and he says, do you understand, Bruce? It has to be more about the vengeance or justice or saving Gotham. It has to be about the little things, don't you see? And that's pretty much, again, this was like the smell the roses, don't overlook things, the trees for the forest, all that he says that is his dad, Bruce's grandfather. They used to come here to remind themselves of that because it's a nice deal. They're watching the sunset in the bay while you're eating hard candies that at first, I have to admit, I thought he was like popping Ritalin or something, or maybe even like, hey, I'm going to have this here painkiller. And it's just sour candies. I get it. And even then, you have that adult Thomas who said, and you can imagine that this was the same scene with him and his grandfather, and he was eating the ice cream, but eventually you get the taste for the sour stuff, right? So it's kind of a neat little play, and it's a nice way to show Thomas giving young Bruce some advice and then actually of the mind saying, and that's the thing. In Bruce's mind, you still have that presence to try to avoid this, try to get away from the asthma. Unfortunately, as Bruce runs away from Thomas Wayne of the mind, telling him to remember the small things and remember these things, you end up having him turn into a skeleton. And he says, run, save what you can, because this is going to be gone. And then you end up seeing the giant asthma wolf just chomp down on the skeleton Thomas Wayne, taking away that memory, taking away another little cog of connection that Batman has to the city. Because remember, the asthma that ends up infecting him from the Orgums, they want to make Batman their new guy. They want to end up controlling him, and this is how it goes on. And I think that it is a really neat play. It's also a very odd play to come out of a 2-month hiatus and when people are going to jump in because they're not going to know what the hell is going on. But if you do, I think it's kind of neat. So once you get that in your mind of what's happening there, you go forward to think, okay, well, what's next? What else ends up connecting them to the city? And while that's going on, you do end up having Fielding and Nash trying to catch up, trying to do things, because the next thing it looks like is he went to the reservoir and he ended up all out of sorts. And when they do end up going to talk to the people of the reservoir that saw him, you do end up having Croc. Killer Croc says, hey, listen, I saw Batman. Man, he was tore up. He had problems. His cape, it was singed. I've never seen him like this. He ended up looking demonic. He ran off to the old fairground. He ended up where, they've been abandoned. He ended up, it looks exactly like where Joker would always go, killing Joke, all that sort of deal. And even says that at this point, these fairgrounds, they are abandoned. And the only people there have been the Joker gang. And those clowns, you don't joke around with them. It's a weird line, but you end up Croc telling this to Fielding and Nash. And they don't believe, like, oh man, what, did Batman beat you up? And you do see like Batman go and walk into the Joker gang. R.I.P. Joker gang. They're not going to end up awake for very long. But when you have Fielding talking to Croc, he says, oh man, you got beat up. Did Batman beat you up? And he goes, no, he didn't beat me up. It's afterwards that woman from the television, with the eyes. This is Shav Had Erhad, the Orgum leader. The Orgums ended up coming in. She came in with a bunch of her Asthma army, the possessed people that they ended up getting even when the Arkham place or the Orgum place went down. And she ended up roughing up everybody. And then they were talking. They're looking for Batman as well. They're trying to find him because, again, Batman's trying to get away from, the whole Asthma control. And they want to go grab him and make sure that he, gets controlled and that they can do this. So they were there asking what was going on as well. They ended up roughing up everybody to kind of get them in line and then said, we're looking for Batman. It'd be best if you help us find him, Mr. Jones. And then Wayland says, no, it's Croc. It's Killer Croc, lady. He probably got punched there too. But he ended up saying, yeah, they didn't ask as nice as you guys. But you guys are pretty nice. Thanks a lot. And actually says, and I love Croc, and I think that Croc, people end up not doing enough with Croc at one point, even being Roy's AA guy. Like, he does end up, I love Croc with the heart of gold, and he actually has this by the end and says, hey, Fielding, look out for yourself. Because he sees that Fielding isn't really being a bad guy here. He's doing his job. He's trying to find Batman, and Batman's out of his head, out of his mind. So he ends up where, Fielding says, you're free to go, Croc. And Croc says, you look out for yourself, Detective Fielding. Looks like the damn end of the world out there. Because when they go, the fairgrounds, they're on fire. Again, this is the asthma affecting the deal of trying to get rid and burn down the memories, physical and mental, to get Batman on their side. And we do see what the memory here was. And it's a really good one. And it's a sad thing because this actually ties in well with the Chip Zdarsky Batman as well, because in this memory, it was Bruce Wayne buying the fairground, the grounds. He ends up, because he's there with young Dick Grayson, it's almost that, the next generation deal, like you had Thomas and young Bruce, now you have young Dick and older Bruce. And he's saying to Dick, I bought the grounds because you always have to stay grounded. You always have to remember, you end up always having to remember the good and the bad, always have that connection, as you then have Nightwing of the Mind actually say to Bruce, it's not just that, though. You need help. You need other people. And he's doing things, because this is where they're imagining the whole Flying Graysons. It's a weird way that this Dick Grayson says, I trained with the Flying Graysons. No, you trained with your mom and dad. But it's weird how he says it. But he says, I trained with them before I trained with you. You know what the key to a good trapeze act is, Bruce? Letting go, trusting that there's someone on the other side to catch you. Now, you say that, and you could take that two ways. Is this the Asmer trying to trick him, or is this the idea that you have to get people to help you? You can't do this alone, because what it twists in, and there is that weird play that each of these memories, before they end up getting swallowed up, you do end up having little tiny last second 2-minute warning Hail Mary little lessons where when Dick Grayson says, listen, I learned to leap into the light. You taught me a lot, but we're not the same. Don't you see, Bruce? I had you. And then, but who has Bruce? He says, I know you think you need your darkness, but the trapeze is not a solo act. Do you ever wonder if your darkness needs you too? And this seems to be that play of Dick Grayson of the Mind in this memory that's now going to get eaten by the Asmer. Him saying, you're going to have to use Barbados. Barbados is in your mind. He's the darkness. You are going to have to rely on him. You're going to have to, because you have to battle this Asmer. This Asmer is in your head. It's going to take over. It's already taking over. It's going to kill all your memories. You're going to have no connection. The one connection you will always have and have left is the darkness, because you're Batman. That's what you rely on. That's what you go with. And then it's really cool because Batman from there kind of like comes to, like while that was going on, he's been walking around the city. He's been drifting around, and he pretty much ends up in Crime Alley and doesn't know why. It's like, oh my God, but that's where you end up then with Barbados coming out and saying, yeah, you cling to the dark alley. It's meaningless sentiment, but I think that we're going to have to use each other. We're going to have to go. And says, but if I lose my memories now and they're devoured, all that remains is a husk. He's having this of the mind conversation with Barbados of what he should do. And he says, what of you then? Who will you torment? And it's kind of a cool play where Batman, from what Dick Grayson said, he's not just saying to Barbados, like, hey, you need me, I need you, hey, let's do it. He actually tries to get Barbados, listen, you're going to have to help me, because if I get rid of you or you, if I'm done, you're not going to have anybody to torment. You're not going to be able to have anybody, almost like a Joker Batman situation, like that whole, the love affair of the mind. But this is Barbados. And yeah, you have to figure out, and they're going to try to figure out, and you do have Barbados like standing there looking really big with this big cloak. And you do see the wolf coming up. And then what Barbados says, I cannot stop the creature that falls to you, but I can stave it off. This place, it is real. Its reality lends its weight. Find more of these remembrances, more of these places. Anchor yourself in them, and we might be able to hold out. And that's what you see. As I said, I think that what the clever thing with Ram V is, when you start out, you think that that's what he's doing already. You think that he's trying to get to these places because that's what he remembers. I can't forget these things. If I forget these things, I don't have my anchor. Oh my God. But then we realize, oh no, this is actually the Asmer affecting Batman to go and destroy them. And in the mind, you have the eating, but in the regular real world, it's getting things blown up. It's burning things down. It's doing all those things. So it's in the physical and the mental, and it's really, really cool, I thought. Again, maybe surprising some people that I actually really think that Ram V did something a little bit different here. And after a couple reads, I liked it, because then when we end, you do end up having what looks like Barbados going off to stave up. He says, I can't win this battle myself. You got to go off and do this. But it looks like at this point, possibly you're going to be able to have Batman little clearer thoughts because you end up having Barbados go to try to stave off the whole Asmer wolf, in that you end up getting the beep that there is, oh my God, we have a sighting. What's going on? Where is it? Oh, it's behind the old Monarch Theater. Wait a minute. And that's Fielding. And he is making these connections more of the Waynes, because everywhere that you're going, it has that weird connection to the Waynes. Is this where Fielding actually realizes, oh my God, that Batman's Bruce Wayne? Maybe that helps out. Maybe it doesn't. It actually is kind of a cool concept. I worry about Fielding because things like that often get you killed. Not by Batman, but all of a sudden you just get thrown off a building randomly by somebody. You don't usually live then, but maybe we'll have that. It's kind of a neat play in that it actually reminds me back when Harper Row, she figured things out, and then even the Tim Drake. And really this plays off in my mind more of the Tim Drake, because this is a Batman in the darkness. He needs the light. He needs somebody to pull him out, like Tim Drake ended up realizing. And that's why I think that it's cool where Fielding said, let's not just try to arrest Batman, because they are trying to bring him in. And at one point, Fielding tried to get out of it. He said to Montoya, I don't want to be involved. I have that connection. Can I just say, yeah, let me bail from this one. I'll go do whatever. And she said, we don't really have anybody else to do it. Nobody else is going to line up to arrest Batman. You're on the case. You and Nash, let's go. So in that, it is kind of a neat play, though, that he is there trying to help Batman. He's the one who owes Batman his life, he said, so he might try to figure things out a little bit more. And yeah, you end up where that's the big deal, Crime Alley. That's the last site. Oh my God, we got to get there, as Renee Montoya is looking at that board with what looks like the yarn and the pins. But I really liked it. It is the start of something new. I'm not going to tell you that it really pushes things forward at a Mach 10 speed. It doesn't. It looks like we're going to end up meandering more. But as a start and as a concept, I thought it was really neat, even though I wish we had some more hand-holding for newer readers or people who may have fallen off the book a bit and they just want to see what's going on. It just kind of has more layers if you have been reading and know what leads into it. You do end up having a Dan Waters 10-eyed man backup, which kind of evolves and sets the 10-eyed man to go out. I haven't been really reading any of the Dan Waters 10-eyed man stuff, so I'm going to actually skip that. We have been skipping it, so it's not like I'm just getting lazy, though I am. But that's that. And with that, in this, I do think I'm not going to, jump over the moon on this here. It's not like that. I do like the art, but I'm going to give this a 7.5. I do like it each time I read it, so it is one of those things that you can say, okay, it might be a smarter story than it looks on the surface level, at least for me. So that's kind of cool.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.